Revenge with Anjo.
On an autumn night in New Avalon City, a place always buzzing with noise and ambition, Ethan Carver, a 37-year-old founder of BrightLayer Innovations, believed he finally had his life under control. People called him a visionary, smart, polished, unstoppable. He'd spent 9 years building his tech company from nothing, working through weekends and holidays, losing friends along the way. His top-floor office overlooked the glowing skyline, reflecting a life he thought he had mastered. But that night, as the city lights blinked below like distant stars, Ethan felt something he had not felt in years: fear. At 8:40 p.m., while preparing for a partnership contract worth $200 million, his computer screen suddenly flickered. A warning flashed, then another, and then every screen in the room lit up with red alerts. Data vanished. Systems froze. Files erased themselves in front of his eyes. Ethan whispered, "No, no, no," as his heartbeat quickened. He called his tech director. Voicemail. He tried his head of security. Nothing. He was alone on the 41st floor, watching 9 years of work collapse. The office felt too quiet, too cold, too empty. And that was when he heard footsteps in the hallway, slow, steady, unexpected. Ethan turned sharply. A woman pushed a cleaning cart into view, humming softly until she looked up and froze. She was Isabella Cruz, a 34-year-old night janitor known for her quiet presence. She wore a navy cleaning uniform, her curls tied in a loose bun, and her eyes carried a warmth that contrasted with the harsh office lighting. "Oh, sir, I didn't know anyone was still here," she said shyly. "I can come back later." Ethan laughed bitterly. "Don't bother. You're not interrupting anything except my whole life falling apart." Isabella glanced at the screens filled with flashing errors. Her expression shifted, confusion, then recognition. "That's not a normal crash," she said softly. "That looks like an intrusion, a coordinated breach." Ethan stared at her, surprised. "You know about this stuff?" She stepped closer, pointing at the patterns on his monitor. "Those sequences, someone is inside your core system, erasing and transferring data." Ethan blinked hard. "How could you possibly know that?" Isabella hesitated, then said, "Because before this job, I worked as a cybersecurity engineer. Life changed, so I changed jobs." Her voice carried no pride, just tired honesty. For the first time that night, Ethan felt a flicker of hope. "Can you help me?" Isabella set aside her cleaning gloves and approached the keyboard with a confidence that startled Ethan. Her fingers flew across the keys, opening encrypted pathways Ethan didn't even know existed. He watched in awe. "Your backup hubs," she murmured. "Are they linked to the main network?" Ethan shook his head. "No. My former consultant insisted they remain isolated." "Why?" For the first time that night, he saw Isabella smile. "Then you're lucky. Whoever attacked your primary system didn't touch the isolated backups. We might be able to rebuild everything." Ethan exhaled shakily. "I thought I was finished." Isabella pushed her card aside and rolled up her sleeves. "I'll need full clearance." Without hesitation, Ethan handed her his universal access card. "Do whatever it takes." She nodded firmly. "But when this is over, remember who stood with you tonight." Ethan met her gaze. "I will." They took the elevator to the underground server vault, cold, humming, filled with blinking blue lights. "This," Ethan said, "is the heart of BrightLayer." Isabella approached the servers like a surgeon approaching a patient. "Then let's revive it," she said. And for the next 6 hours, they worked side by side. As the hours passed, the basement echoed with the rhythmic tapping of keys and the soft hum of machines. Ethan paced back and forth, running fingers through his hair, while Isabella worked without pause. "You don't have to stay the whole time," she said, not looking up. "I'm not leaving you alone," Ethan replied. "Not tonight." The quietness felt strangely comforting, two strangers united by desperation. Around 3:25 a.m., something shifted. The red alerts on the screens began to disappear. Files reassembled. Systems rebooted. "No way," Ethan whispered. "Is this real?" Isabella stretched her stiff fingers and leaned back. Your company is alive again, Mr. Carver. You just needed someone who refused to give up. Ethan felt tears filling his eyes, something rare for him. How do I ever thank you? Isabella shook her head. You don't owe me anything. Just fix the things in your life that actually matter. Before he could reply, the system displayed a final message. Restoration complete. Ethan stared, stunned. As dawn crept through the small basement window, he turned to Isabella. It's not just the company that's breathing again, he said softly. I am too. She blushed, unsure how to respond. When employees arrived that morning, they walked into a scene they would talk about for years. Their CEO, who rarely left his top-floor office, was sitting in the server room holding a cup of cheap coffee beside a janitor. They were smiling like old friends, surrounded by fully restored systems. No one understood it. No one imagined what had happened overnight. But Ethan understood exactly who had saved him. And he was determined the world would see her too. That afternoon, he called his senior team for an emergency meeting. They gathered in the conference room, confused, whispering, curious. Ethan stood tall at the head of the table, with Isabella beside him. She looked nervous, out of place, holding her cleaning badge. Everyone, Ethan said, I want you to meet the person who saved this company while the rest of us slept. The room fell silent. His chief technology officer, Brandon Hale, frowned skeptically. Sir, are you telling us the janitor repaired a full-scale cyber breach? Ethan didn't flinch. Yes. And starting today, Isabella Cruz will head our new security division. Gasps filled the room. Whispers. Doubt. Resistance. Isabella lowered her eyes, but Ethan placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. She earned this, he said. Discussion over. The meeting ended in tension. Some executives whispered angrily. Others stared in disbelief. Brandon Hale was the loudest critic. After everyone left the room, he confronted Ethan in the hallway. This is reckless, Brandon snapped. You're giving her authority over systems she barely understands. Isabella stood silent, her hands clenched. Ethan stepped forward. You didn't stop the breach, Brandon. She did. Brandon scoffed. Luck. That's all. Ethan's eyes hardened. Then I'll take her luck over your arrogance. Brandon stormed away, leaving a trail of frustration behind him. Ethan exhaled slowly, turning to Isabella. Don't let them intimidate you. She gave a gentle smile. I've faced worse than office gossip. That afternoon, she received her new badge, new office, and new responsibilities. People who had never acknowledged her presence suddenly gave forced smiles. Some whispered, How did a cleaner get here? Others said, Maybe she's smarter than we thought. But Isabella ignored them. For the first time in years, she felt valued again. Ethan watched her from afar, impressed by her calm strength. He felt something changing inside him, respect, admiration, something deeper he couldn't name yet. He told himself it was gratitude, but part of him knew it was more. Over the next weeks, Isabella transformed BrightLayer's security structure. She updated firewalls, redesigned password systems, and retrained staff. She worked late every night, reviewing old vulnerabilities. One evening, as she sifted through server logs, she paused. Something wasn't right. Patterns, repeated logins, unusual entry times. No, she whispered. This can't be a mistake. She traced the signatures again. Same user ID, same time window, same hidden route. Someone inside the company was still breaching their systems. Someone with high-level access. Isabella grabbed her laptop and rushed to Ethan's office. He was there, half asleep over paperwork. He looked up, startled. Isabella? What's wrong? She closed the door behind her. The attack isn't over. Ethan shot upright. What? She turned her laptop toward him. Someone inside BrightLayer is still attempting intrusions. Small ones. Careful ones. Testing our defenses. Ethan's jaw tightened. A traitor? Isabella nodded. I can't prove it yet, but yes. Silence settled between them, heavy and cold. Ethan rubbed his eyes. I trusted everyone here. Isabella whispered. Sometimes betrayal hides behind familiar faces. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, as if he finally understood that the battle they thought they'd won had only just begun. For days, Isabella worked quietly, secretly, studying every suspicious login. She created invisible traps, fake accounts filled with false data, to lure the intruder. She barely slept, barely ate. Ethan noticed her exhaustion and often brought her tea or sandwiches. "You don't have to push so hard," he said gently one night. She smiled wearily. "If someone is trying to destroy what you've built, I won't let them." Ethan felt warmth in his chest. "You've done enough already." "Not until this company is safe," she replied. Around midnight, her screen displayed something new, a pattern she'd been waiting for. Her breath caught. She zoomed in on the data. "There," she whispered. A name appeared. A name she'd suspected but prayed she was wrong about. Brandon Hale, Ethan's trusted CTO. The man who had insulted her from the beginning. Isabella's heart sank. "Why would he?" she muttered. She gathered the logs, saved everything on a secure drive, and walked to Ethan's office. When he saw her expression, he stood instantly. "What happened?" She placed the drive on his desk. "Ethan, it's Brandon." Ethan stared, stunned, unable to speak. Betrayal hit harder when it came from someone you trusted. Ethan ran a shaking hand through his hair. "Isabella, Brandon has been with me for 7 years." She nodded sadly. "I know, but look." She pulled up the records, late-night entries, unauthorized downloads, temporary file wipes. Ethan's face turned pale. He opened the door for the first attack. "And he's still trying," Isabella added gently. Ethan paced the room.
"Why?
"Why would he do this?" Isabella answered quietly. "We'll know when we confront him." That evening they set a plan. Isabella created a fake financial database and left it accessible through one of Brandon's favorite entry points. Ethan hid in his office with the lights off, watching through the glass. At 11:15 p.m., Brandon entered Isabella's office. He tried to act casual. "Still here," he said. "Just wrapping up," she replied calmly. Brandon moved closer, eyeing her computer. "You're working on high-level files now." "Impressive." Isabella sensed his tension. "Just doing my job." Brandon smirked. "Your job seems to involve searching for people who don't want to be found." He reached toward her screen. Then Ethan stepped out. "Lights on." "Stop, Brandon," Ethan said. Brandon froze, eyes wide, guilt flashing across his face. Brandon's mask dropped. "You think you know everything, Ethan?" he snapped. "You have no idea what's happening behind the scenes." Isabella stepped aside, watching him carefully. Ethan said, "You betrayed me." Brandon laughed bitterly. "I wasn't the only one. Bigger players are involved. BrightLayer has been targeted for years." "By who?" Isabella asked. Brandon smirked. "A competitor. Novacore Dynamics. They offered me a position and a bonus worth $400,000. Ethan's eyebrows tightened. "You would destroy everything we built for money?" Brandon's eyes filled with resentment. "You're rich, Ethan. You don't understand desperation. I have a sick daughter and debts you couldn't imagine." Isabella felt a pang of empathy. She whispered, "Brandon, that still doesn't justify this." Brandon snapped, "Integrity doesn't pay hospital bills." Ethan stepped forward. "We could have helped you." Brandon shook his head. "You help the talented ones, not people like me." Suddenly, Brandon shoved Ethan aside and bolted for the exit. "Brandon!" Isabella shouted. But he was fast down the hall, through the stairwell, disappearing before security arrived. They searched the building. Nothing. Brandon had vanished. Ethan and Isabella stood alone in the dim hallway, shaken. "I never thought I trusted him like a brother," Ethan whispered. Isabella touched his arm gently. "People hide their wounds well." Ethan sighed heavily. "What do we do now?" She opened her laptop. "Now we uncover everything. Every email, every payment, every person connected to Novacore Dynamics." Ethan watched her, amazed by her strength. "You don't have to face this alone." She nodded. "But I won't let fear decide our next step." Over the next week, Isabella traced digital trails leading from Brandon to Novacore, encrypted messages, money transfers, hidden communications. The truth was worse than they expected. Novacore had been planning a hostile takeover for months. Brandon was just one pawn. "We have enough evidence to take them down," Isabella finally said. Ethan rubbed his temples. "If we expose them, our company becomes the center of a storm." "The truth is a storm worth facing," she replied softly. Ethan lifted his eyes to hers. "You always know the right thing to say." Isabella smiled faintly. "I've lived through storms before." Ethan assembled his legal team. Isabella organized all digital evidence. For days, they strategized. The board advised silence to protect BrightLayer's image, but Ethan refused. One late night, he sat alone with Isabella in the conference room. "Do you think we're making the right choice?" he asked. Isabella met his gaze. "If you stay silent, Novacore wins. And Brandon's betrayal remains hidden. Truth brings pain, but it also brings freedom." Ethan exhaled slowly. "You've changed how I see everything." She lowered her eyes. "I didn't mean to change you." "You did," he said softly. "You saved more than just my company." A silence lingered, warm, meaningful. The next morning, Ethan called for a press conference. Reporters filled the room. Cameras flashed. Ethan stood at the podium, Isabella beside him. He spoke clearly, bravely, about the attack, the sabotage, the traitor, the conspiracy. Isabella watched with pride. When he introduced her as the woman who saved the company, the room erupted in astonishment. For the first time in years, Isabella felt seen. The news spread rapidly. Night Janitor saves tech firm from corporate sabotage. BrightLayer exposes Novacore's corruption. Isabella's name soared across media platforms. Novacore executives panicked. Federal agents began investigations. Investors flocked back to BrightLayer. For the first time in months, Ethan felt hope. 3 days later, police found Brandon attempting to cross the border. He confessed everything: names, motives, deals. Novacore's leadership collapsed in scandal. When Ethan heard the news, he walked into Isabella's office with a soft smile. "It's over," he said. She looked up from her laptop. "Is it?" He nodded. "Because of you." She sat back, finally allowing herself to relax. "I just did what I could." Ethan stepped closer. "You did more than that. You restored my faith in people." Isabella blushed. "I just didn't want to let you down." He whispered, "You never have." 3 months later, BrightLayer thrived stronger than ever. Investors tripled their support. Clients praised the company for transparency and resilience. One afternoon, Ethan invited Isabella to the basement, the old server vault where it all began. "Why here?" she asked, confused. "You'll see," Ethan said, opening the door. She stepped inside and froze. The entire room had been renovated into a spacious innovation center, sleek and bright. On the wall, in polished silver letters, she read, "Cruz Innovation Hub." She gasped. "Ethan, what is this?" He smiled warmly. "This is your legacy. You saved this company. Now your name belongs where the miracle happened." Isabella's eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve this." "You deserve more than this," he replied. She covered her mouth, trying to compose herself. "I don't know what to say." Ethan stepped closer, his voice gentle. "Say you'll stay. Say you'll lead this with me." Isabella turned toward him, her eyes shimmering. "Ethan, why are you doing all this?" He swallowed, nerves tightening his chest. "Because you changed me. Because you stood with me when I had no one. Because you saw hope where I saw ruin." She blinked slowly. "Ethan," he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Isabella's breath caught. "No," she whispered in disbelief. He opened it. A simple, elegant ring sparkled inside. "Isabella Cruz," Ethan said softly, "you didn't just repair my company. You repaired my heart. I don't want you in my life as an employee. I want you beside me as my partner. Please say yes." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Ethan, I never expected this." "I didn't either," he whispered. but losing everything made me realize what truly matters. She breathed shakily. I choose you, she said at last. Ethan smiled with relief and placed the ring on her finger. Then I'm the luckiest man alive. News of their engagement spread slowly within the company. Some people celebrated. Some whispered behind closed doors. But Ethan didn't care. He had made his choice. He and Isabella spent the following weeks planning quietly, focusing more on their bond than on public reactions. One evening, Isabella walked into Ethan's office carrying old files. Do you ever think about how different your life would be if I hadn't entered your office that night? She asked. Ethan chuckled. I think about it every day. She smiled. It still amazes me. What does? He asked. That a janitor could become this. Ethan took her hand. You were never just a janitor. You were a hidden genius the world ignored. Isabella's voice softened. You saw me when I felt invisible, he whispered, and I'll never stop seeing you. 6 months later, they married in a small chapel on the outskirts of the city. Only close friends and family attended. Isabella wore a simple cream dress, her curls flowing gently down her back. Ethan stood at the altar, his heart pounding like it was the first day he ever saw her. When Isabella walked down the aisle, Ethan felt his breath stop. She looked radiant, soft, graceful, filled with the quiet strength he had fallen in love with. The officiant asked if they had personal vows. Isabella went first. Ethan, you looked at me when no one else even noticed me. You trusted me when I didn't trust myself. You gave me a second chance at life. That's the kind of love that heals. Ethan's eyes filled with emotion. Then he spoke. Isabella, you taught me that miracles don't come from power or money. They come from people who care. You saved me in every way a person can be saved. I promise to spend my life honoring the woman who rescued my soul. The guests wiped their eyes as Ethan and Isabella sealed their vows with a kiss. Their wedding reception took place at a quiet lakeside venue. Lanterns hung from trees, glowing softly as the sun set. Ethan held Isabella close as they danced. Are you happy? He whispered. More than I ever thought possible, she replied. And you? He smiled. You made me a better man. Later that night, while speaking with guests, a young intern approached Isabella shyly. Miss Cruz, your story inspires me. I used to think my dreams were impossible. Isabella placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Never let anyone dim your worth, she said. Greatness hides where people least expect it. That night, as Ethan and Isabella left the venue, hand in hand, they looked at the calm lake shimmering under moonlight. This is the beginning, isn't it? Ethan said. Isabella nodded. The beginning of something we'll build together. BrightLayer continued to grow under their joint leadership. Isabella launched training programs for young engineers from underprivileged communities. Ethan expanded the company's innovation labs. Together, they became known for empathy-driven leadership. One day, during a board presentation, an investor asked Ethan, "What changed your company's fate?" Ethan glanced at Isabella with a tender smile. "Someone unexpected walked into my office," he replied. "And she saved us all." Isabella felt warmth spread through her chest. After the meeting, she playfully nudged him. "You don't have to keep telling that story." Ethan grinned. "I'll tell it until my last breath." She shook her head, blushing. "You're impossible. And you love me anyway," he teased. "Unfortunately," she joked, kissing his cheek. Years passed. Together, they built BrightLayer into a global leader. Isabella became a national symbol of resilience. She was invited to speak at cybersecurity summits, universities, and youth programs. Journalists often asked her, "How did you rise from a janitor to an expert?" Isabella always smiled and said, "Your worth is not measured by titles. It is measured by what you carry inside." Ethan watched her with pride everywhere she went. One evening, as they relaxed at home, Ethan asked, "Do you ever miss your old life?" Isabella laughed softly. "No mop? No late-night floors? No, thank you." Ethan smirked. "Good. Because this life feels right with you in it." She snuggled against him. "It feels right with you too." That night, they fell asleep knowing their story had become a lifeline for others, proof that miracles can come from unexpected places. One summer afternoon, BrightLayer hosted a charity event supporting families struggling with medical debt. Isabella shared her past, her husband's long illness, the debt that pushed her into janitorial work, the years she felt invisible. The crowd listened silently. After her speech, a young woman approached her. "Ms. Cruz, I'm going through something similar. Your story gives me hope." Isabella hugged her warmly. "You are stronger than you think. Keep going." Ethan watched from a distance, his heart swelling with admiration. On their drive home, he said, "You realize you're changing lives, right?" She shook her head. "I'm just sharing the truth." "Exactly," he said softly. "Your truth saves people." Isabella leaned her head on his shoulder, grateful for the path that had led her here, even the painful parts. That evening, they visited the Cruz Innovation Hub. The blue lights glowed softly around them. Ethan stood in silence, thinking back to the night he almost lost everything. "This room is where my old life died," he said, "and where my new one began." Isabella ran her fingers over the engraved letters of her name. "Funny how pain can be the doorway to beauty." Ethan nodded. "Would you change anything?" She shook her head. "Not a thing. Every moment brought me here to you." He turned to her. "I used to think success was money and power. You taught me otherwise." Isabella smiled. "Success is who you become, not what you own." Ethan kissed her forehead. "Then you are the greatest success story I know." BrightLayer investigated its systems thoroughly to ensure no remnants of sabotage remained. Isabella oversaw the final inspection personally. One evening, her assistant said, "Everything is clean. No traces left." Isabella nodded. "Good. I want our future secure." When she walked out of the building, Ethan was waiting outside with 2 coffees. "Long day?" he asked. She chuckled. "Every day." They sat on a bench outside the headquarters, watching the city traffic. Ethan said, "You know, I once thought my company defined me." Isabella sipped her coffee. "What defines you now?" Ethan looked into her eyes. "The people I choose to love. And the people who chose me." She touched his hand softly. "Then you're defined by all the right things." Isabella often visited the cleaning staff she once worked with. She checked on them, shared jokes, listened to their stories. Many struggled with finances, health, or immigration challenges. Isabella created a fund to support them, training, education, and relief. One evening, a cleaner named Rosa approached her tearfully. "You didn't forget us," Rosa whispered. Isabella held her hands. "How could I? I was one of you." Rosa hugged her tightly. "You give us hope." Ethan watched quietly from the hallway, filled with admiration. Later that night, he told Isabella, "Your heart is your greatest gift." She smiled. "Then I'm glad you saw it." He kissed her hand gently. "I saw it the moment you touched that broken keyboard." On their 3rd wedding anniversary, Ethan surprised Isabella with a trip back to the old rooftop overlooking New Avalon. The city lights sparkled beneath them, just like the night they first met. Ethan said, "This view used to intimidate me. Now it inspires me." Isabella leaned against him. "Because you're not alone anymore." He nodded. "Exactly." They reminisced about the chaotic night of the cyberattack, how hopeless Ethan felt, how unexpected Isabella's arrival was. "You saved my life," he whispered. Isabella shook her head. "No. You saved mine too. You gave me back my confidence." Ethan wrapped an arm around her. "We saved each other." She nodded. "That's what love does." BrightLayer became known worldwide for resilience and innovation. Universities invited Isabella to speak about hidden talent in overlooked populations. She told audiences, "See people. Really see them. You never know who holds the solution to your biggest problem." One day after a lecture, a student approached Ethan. "Sir, you and Ms. Cruz are legends. Your story gives me hope." Ethan smiled. "All we did was listen to each other." The student laughed. "That's harder than it sounds." When they got home that evening, Isabella wrapped her arms around Ethan. "Do you think our story matters?" Ethan kissed her forehead. It mattered to me, and now it matters to the world. She whispered. Then it was worth everything. One evening, Ethan stood alone in the Cruz Innovation Hub, staring at the servers glowing softly. Isabella walked in quietly. Lost in thought, she asked. Ethan nodded. Thinking about the night we rebuilt everything. Isabella smiled. The night two strangers became partners. Ethan chuckled. I wasn't exactly graceful that night. You were scared, she said, and still brave enough to trust me. Ethan took her hands. It was the best decision I ever made. Isabella leaned into him. Trust builds everything, love, companies' futures. Ethan whispered, and you're the reason I learned that. Years later, Brandon Hale sent Ethan a letter from prison. In it, he apologized for everything, his anger, his betrayal, his fear. Ethan showed the letter to Isabella. She read it slowly, then said, Pain makes people desperate. Ethan nodded. Should we visit him? Isabella surprised him. Yes. When they visited, Brandon looked thinner, older, remorseful. I'm sorry, he whispered to Ethan. And to you, Miss Cruz. Isabella said gently, I forgive you. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. Brandon nodded tearfully. I know. Thank you for seeing me. As they left, Ethan said, You're kinder than I am. Isabella replied, Forgiveness frees the heart. I want mine free. One late evening, Ethan and Isabella walked through the office. The lights were dim, the halls quiet. Remember when this place felt like a battlefield? Ethan asked. Isabella laughed softly. Now it feels like home. They paused at the large glass window, overlooking the city. Ethan said, I thought losing everything was the end. Isabella shook her head. It was the beginning. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Sometimes we must break to discover who we are. Ethan wrapped his arm around her. And sometimes a miracle walks into your office wearing a janitor's uniform. Isabella smiled. And sometimes a broken CEO learns how to be human again. Years passed, but their story continued, inspiring thousands. People wrote letters saying Isabella's journey helped them believe in themselves again. Young workers said Ethan's honesty taught them leadership. And every time Ethan and Isabella told their story, they ended with the same message. The people we overlook often carry the answers we're searching for. Kindness is never wasted. Second chances are real. And miracles come in unexpected forms. On a quiet evening, they stood together outside BrightLayer headquarters, watching the city lights dance across the skyline. Ethan whispered, If someone out there is having the worst night of their life, what would you tell them? Isabella took his hand. I'd tell them that help is closer than they think. And sometimes the person who saves you is the one you never noticed before.